You know that, yes, there has been in the past. There have been, unfortunately, too many politicians, including mayors in the city of East Cleveland, that have been brought up on charges, have been misusing the city's money, the taxpayers' money. So the auditor has had to step in and independently review all of the books for the city of East Cleveland. He's going to be giving an update here. I thought that was him right there, the Auditor of State. Let's just tell you what they are. You may not have heard of Mr. Faber. Keith Faber is the Auditor of State, one of 5 independently elected statewide offices in Ohio. They are responsible for auditing more than 5,900 state and local government agencies. You want to talk about a job that involves numbers and a whole lot of accounting, this is it. The auditor of the state can also provide financial services to local governments. Then they also try to investigate and prevent fraud in public agencies and promote transparency in government, and that's something that's been lacking in the city of East Cleveland, to say the least. When you have mayors and police officers being charged with corruption, dereliction of duty in office, that is when the state feels they need to step in and really take a look at what's going on. Doesn't happen very often that you get the Auditor of State basically combing through all of your books to see where the money is and where it's not. And that's what we have with the situation in East Cleveland. I thought we were about to get underway. Got a little bit of a fake out there, but again, this is actually being held in the city of Cleveland. The state auditor has come up to give an update. And it is the kind of thing that if the auditor feels the city is headed in the right direction, they can be taken off fiscal emergency. But it looks like he is ready now. Let's take a listen.
To be here in Cleveland. It's always a good day to be up in Northeast Ohio, particularly when the sun's shining and it's a beautiful day. What we're here for, though, isn't so exciting, although we're here to try and put a solid footing and put a path forward to take care of the problems that have persisted in East Cleveland for far too long. This morning, we sent a letter to East Cleveland officials indicating that we would recommend to the Attorney General that the city be placed into receivership. This is something that is the result of bipartisan legislation that was recently passed. I'll invite Representative Brent up to talk about that in just a second. But what this designation means is that the Auditor of State will formally request that the Attorney General initiate legal proceedings before the Ohio Court of Claims for the appointment of a receiver for the city. And we'll talk about how we got there and all of that in a minute. But before we do that, I want to invite the representative, frankly, a great representative. Come on up, and Representative Brent, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for Auditor Faber and the work we've been able to do together. This has definitely been a teamwork because we are here to work on behalf of the people of East Cleveland. This step of receivership is making it a priority that we want to make sure that our city becomes fiscally solvent. For many years, more than a decade now, East Cleveland has been in a fiscal emergency. And so working with the auditor, speaking to our community leaders as well as our religious leaders and elected officials, this is the next step of making sure that we can work towards this. I look forward to working with the receiver and making sure that he or she who's ever appointed to this is receiving the resources that they need so they can work and listen to the people of East Cleveland. All of this goes back to how can we make sure the quality of life for those who live in East Cleveland is our #1 priority, and the receivership is the #1 step of how we can make sure that our city is solvent. This is going to take time. This is not going to be something that's going to happen overnight, and I look forward to seeing this through for at least for the next 18 months while I'm here at the General Assembly and working with the auditor as we make steps to making sure that this East Cleveland is one of the best cities here in the state of Ohio. Thank you, Auditor.
Well, thank you, Representative. And I just want to give the representative one other shout out. Look, for too many years, my predecessors, legislators, have kicked the can down the road. We have seen what can happen when you work in a bipartisan way to try and address real problems and find real solutions. And this is the start of that process. And I certainly commend her. And frankly, we are welcoming to anybody who wants to help work towards trying to fix the problem. So how did we get here? Essentially, we have more than 30 years, East Cleveland, actually the better part of 40 years, East Cleveland has spent in fiscal emergency. They've gotten in and out a couple of times, but effectively, that's where we're at. They have numerous city rulings and penalties, a lack of accountability, and unwillingness to partner with the Fiscal Emergency Commission, an inability to hire and maintain fiscal staff willing and capable of addressing the dire financial situation within the city. The latest financial recovery plan approved by the Commission was May of 2022. The revised plan was due to the Commission on May of 2023. The city has been under the 85% limitation almost every month since July of 2023. That's 24 of the past 27 months. So essentially what we've seen is their inability or unwillingness to essentially manage the city. Add that to the fact that the former mayor was convicted and his chief of staff was convicted and other issues. The time is now to stop kicking the can down the road and head to solutions to benefit the citizens of East Cleveland. They are entitled to have a functioning fiscal house that makes sense. So why is a receiver and what is a receiver? House Bill 96 enacts Section 11829 of the Ohio Revised Code, which goes into full effect tomorrow. This legislation was crafted and supported in a bipartisan fashion. And I will tell you, those negotiations and discussion were meaningful. We sat down and put things in there that, frankly, will help make the process work better. The provision authorizes the appointment of a court-supervised receiver for municipal corporations in fiscal emergency that meet specific criteria. A receiver will be able to make recommendations or assume, if necessary, the responsibility for crafting and submitting to the financial plan to the Financial Planning Commission and Supervision Commission. Also, the receiver will incorporate into the recovery plan ways to alleviate deficit funds, the payment of outstanding bills, and compliance with budgetary laws. The receiver will also work with city administration and council to assure that appropriations are within the estimated resources and consistent with the commission-approved recovery plan. Ensure that expenditures are within appropriations and bank reconciliations are completed promptly. So that's the law. It applies here because East Cleveland meets the criteria set forth in the law of a continuous designation of fiscal emergency for more than 10 years and ongoing fiscal management concerns. Specifically, the law permits the financial supervisor or the legislative authority of a local government in fiscal emergency to make a referral to the Attorney General seeking a court-appointed receiver when the following apply. As I said, they've been in fiscal emergency continuously for 10 years and has met the cumulative threshold for 5 years over 2 separate periods in the past decade. And the financial supervisor determines the municipality has demonstrated serious financial mismanagement, including one or more of the following: noncompliance with budgetary laws, appropriations are inconsistent with approved financial plans, assuming debt without the approval of the commission, or legislative or administrative actions that conflict with the terms of the financial plan. We believe those conditions are satisfied, and therefore, as the financial supervisor, we are making this recommendation. In closing, before we get to questions and answers, as I've said before, for too long, people simply just kick the can down the road. It's time for that to end. It's time for a long-term solution. What those solutions are from a financial perspective has to include living within your means, living within the revenue streams, paying your bills, and figuring out what that means. Now, it may mean that there are options, and we saw Detroit go through something similar and has resulted in a more vibrant, successful, long-term city of Detroit. I'm hopeful the same thing can happen for East Cleveland, and the community simply deserves better. It's time they were given a chance to succeed. This action can help put the community on the path towards fiscal stability where everyone can benefit. And that's what this goal is, to essentially create a playing field to where there's accountability and a long-term fiscal integrity plan. So with that, I'd like to open it up for questions.
Auditor, this is about a month ahead of a mayoral election in East Cleveland. Is this getting out ahead of the will of the voters?
Short answer, no. This has been an ongoing problem. Many of the people that are running for mayor, God bless them, we'll let the voters decide. We don't take part in elections. We don't participate in elections. We stay the heck out of it. One of the reasons we're doing this now is that if we waited another month, we think the problem would continue to get worse. But ultimately, the problem isn't just the mayor. We've had issues with council. We've had issues of having staff. We've had issues getting financial documents. We're still struggling to get documents to do audits back as far as 2021 and 2022. So this is not a new problem. It is a problem that we hope that the new, whoever's elected mayor will cooperate with the receiver and work through to create a long-term solution. We certainly are encouraged by the level of responsiveness that we've had as of recent from both the current mayor and the former mayor. And God bless them. Let's get an election over with, and let's organize and certainly work together to find a long-term solution.
What does this mean for the powers of the elected mayor and the elected city council members in East Cleveland?
That's a great question. Essentially, they have all their same powers. But what happens is that they're now going to have some limitations on their ability to manage their finances, and the money side is going to be controlled in some degree by the receiver. The receiver is going to have the ability to put things in place to make sure the books and records and the administration side from the financial picture is better managed. So, you know, to the extent that money and control of the money is power, yes, some of that will go to the receiver. But in the end, the receiver's task, as I mentioned, in the duties of the receiver, to work with the elected officials to try and craft plans that lead to a better fiscal management.
So it's not, in your opinion, replacing the mayor?
It is not. You will still have a mayor, you will still have city council.
Over the years, there have been two financial planning and supervision commissions put in charge of East Cleveland. And the first one, they stayed there for 18 years, and at one point they didn't meet every month like they were required to do. They had the wrong people serving on the commission as chairperson. Over the last 13 or 14 years that this commission's been in place, over the last 3 years, they've not met monthly, they've not met regularly, and there's been really no accountability on the state's part to hold the last mayor, the convicted ex-last mayor, accountable. It was the council and its officials who went after prosecuting him for the dereliction he was involved in. Don't you think the state plays some role in the problems the city is facing?
Well, again, I think what you're trying to do is detract and frankly shift the burden for local government officials who have not been able to manage to the state. The state's commission is designed to help cooperate and not directly oversee the day-to-day. Look, the city council, and I think you were a member of the city council.
No, I was the mayor.
Okay.
I'm the only mayor to keep the city out of fiscal emergency.
Okay. The bottom line is this council still hasn't given a recommendation or passed financial guidance. And I go back to this from a different perspective. It's time to solve the problem. And whether the problem wasn't solved 5 years, 10 years is far too long to be in fiscal emergency anyway. It's time for us to find a solution and work together to solve it going forward. And giving the extra responsibilities to somebody who can be held accountable is a good thing. And so that's what we did here, and that's why we're going forward. Again, the bottom line here, and we responded, I think, in a letter that you might have participated in, to some of those facts. But from the perspective of the state, all of the elements of the fiscal emergency, all of the evidence necessary to appoint the receiver are in play. And we look forward to work with East Cleveland, whoever the mayor is, whoever the council is, to get this problem taken care of and to get a solution for the long term. The residents deserve that. And if you were a mayor who got them out of fiscal emergency once, hopefully you can participate and get them out of fiscal emergency another time.
Have you had a conversation with the Attorney General about what he plans to do as far as the recommendation?
Well, the statute requires him to take action and file it, and I believe he has appointed independent counsel to go ahead and prepare to file that. So I think the Attorney General's office is aware of this, and we believe this will be moving forward very rapidly.
What kind of timeline? Say rapidly.
The judges and the court will have a pleading at some time in the near future. I would imagine sometime within this month. And I would imagine how long the court takes to appoint a receiver is an open question for the judges to decide of the court claims.
Has another city in Ohio ever been placed in receivership?
The statute just takes effect tomorrow, so this will be the first.
Why now? Is there anything in particular that came to light or that you saw that made you decide this is the time for you to make this move?
Well, again, I think the picture is a bigger picture. For too long, elected officials have essentially said, it's East Cleveland, just leave it be. And we made the decision, after not getting responsiveness after the former mayor was convicted, that it's time to figure out a long-term solution. Continuing the status quo just doesn't work anymore. And so we worked in a bipartisan way with the legislature, and frankly, this legislation was a bipartisan piece of legislation. So I think we all sat and said, look, it's time for a long-term solution. This is part of that pathway. There is nothing better than figuring out a way for East Cleveland to govern themselves and figure out what their own future is. This helps give them tools to get there.
The city is on the hook for tens of millions of dollars in outstanding judgments.
Correct.
What does this mean for that?
It allows them to start marshaling their assets and their receivables to figure out how they're going to get out of it. Look, long-term, if the receiver and the elected officials determine that there is no viable pathway, that their revenues will never be sufficient to satisfy all the debt and obligations, then they have other options. There was a provision originally in this bill that the governor vetoed that would allow the receiver to move them towards a structured bankruptcy if the local government officials agreed or requested it and move forward. That provision still applies. There is a bankruptcy provision in the federal code and a bankruptcy provision in the state code, but the process would still require the elected representatives to vote and ask the Department of Tax and the governor for the permission to file a structured bankruptcy. Historically, that's what happens when you've got more debts than you can satisfy off of realistic revenues. But in the short term, operating at 85% of your projected revenues has led, even at that, the city of East Cleveland is still spending more money than they take in. That is unsustainable. And the goal here is to figure out how we're going to marshal that and how we're going to give them the power. The best solution? More revenue. The best solution is a way to figure out how to make East Cleveland the vibrant economic hub where people want to go there and shop, and they want to go there and do activities and build jobs and economic development. Long term, that is still probably the best answer. In the short term, you got to balance the expenses and the revenue to be able to manage the infrastructure to be able to build that out. And so you talked about the judgments. I think last time I heard the numbers are $60, $70 million. And I think the revenue stream for East Cleveland is 10 million, give or take. I'm looking at my team.
About 11.
About 11 in revenue, and what's the spending?
General fund spending was 12.
So there you go.
With that in mind, do you see a path forward for East Cleveland to be financially solvent?
Look, they're going to have to balance their expenses with their revenue, and that's the first step. And if they can figure out how to do that and then also continue to pay, as the Supreme Court has required, money towards these judgments, then the answer is yes. But again, I think you need to have somebody that can come in and help put a plan together to get it done.
You said it's about 60 million in judgments?
Somebody know the number? How much of the judgment? For some reason I thought 65 million, but I might be.
It's approximately 65, I believe.
It's approximately 65 million in judgments. Mayor, how much?
There's 50 million for one case, 12 million for another case, and there's some multi-million dollar cases out there. It's in the 70 million plus.
Yeah, I've heard numbers ranging from 50 to 75 million, so there's the range. It's a lot. It's a lot. Even at a nominal interest rate, just the interest on that is almost half of the budget. Okay, so do figure out what that means. And that's why, again, I think ultimately you need to have all options on the table. But let's get the receiver in, somebody who can take a big picture look at everything, work with the mayor, work with the city council to figure out what the plan is. But in the short term and the long term, you're going to have to manage with the revenue stream that's there. And you can have a plan to get more revenue, but until the revenue generates from that plan, it's just a plan.
You say all options. Does that include the possibility of bankruptcy for the city of East Cleveland?
Right now, according to the existing code, that's not a question that we get to ask. It's a question for East Cleveland, and it's a question for the governor and the Department of Taxation. And so, ultimately, if I were in that the work that we did with Representative Brandt and the minority leader of the Senate indicated there was an option for bankruptcy in that plan. The governor vetoed that out, thinking that he wanted to have the existing law be followed and make it a little bit more difficult to go that route. But certainly the plan that we developed certainly envisioned that as a possibility. It worked pretty well in Detroit. All right, well, I want to thank everybody.
Dan DeRose with 19 News as we hear the shocking development in East Cleveland that they are going to be recommended for receivership. That's a very technical term for saying you have been in such physical emergency, financial emergency for so long. The auditor saying it's not just the past 10 years, which is an incredible long time to be in a financial emergency situation, but that this actually goes back 30, 40 years. And you don't have to be a CPA to understand that when your city is only taking in about $11 million in revenue, whether that be from taxes, property taxes, but they are spending $12 million a year. So that small community is spending $1 million more than they take in. So a financial receiver that gets appointed will come in, and everything will have to go, every financial decision will have to be made by that receiver. Now, there's some hoops that have to be jumped through. The Ohio Attorney General has to approve to send to a judge. The judge has to agree, and then a receiver has to be appointed. But ultimately, I think what we heard is there is a pathway. This will be the beginning of the pathway. They have more than $65 million out in lawsuits, in judgments against that city. How are they going to pay that? And ultimately, it sounds like probably the best option, as anybody would, that is so far in debt they can't get their head above water. There may have to be a bankruptcy filing at some point. This has never happened in the state of Ohio. As you heard, this is a new law that actually goes into effect tomorrow to where the auditor's office can recommend receivership, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Our 11 o'clock news is underway on Cleveland's 43. Our noon news is coming up on Channel 19. Until then, I'm Dan DeRose with 19 News. Have a great day.